Am I impressing you yet? Luke's eyebrows lifted. Are you trying to? Cammie asked, but he so was. He didn't even seem to be trying all that hard. He turned his head left, drawing her attention to the fine decor of the five-star restaurant. I'm fairly certain this place is doing the heavy lifting for me. She giggled, and he grinned. Lifting her wine, she continued their easy conversation. You seem comfortable no matter where you are. At the gym on live television in a suit, posing nude for a room full of artists, especially there. She ducked her head. She couldn't believe she'd asked him to do that, or that he'd done it. I'm not that comfortable here, or in this. He lifted and dropped his tie. God, he looked incredible. So far, she'd seen him in workout clothes wearing nothing, and in a suit that probably cost 10 times the price of her dress. And she didn't know which way she preferred him. Every version of Luke was hot. These pants are the last thing on earth I prefer cradling my balls. The sommelier came by at that very moment to refill their wine glasses, then whisked away, never hinting that she'd overheard Luke's comment. Cammie laughed out loud. The last date she'd gone on hadn't been half this fun, or made her feel quite as relaxed. You look great. There. That seemed harmless. I'd tell you how stunning you look again, but I worry I'll scare you away. Candlelight flickered on the angles of his handsome face. I don't scare easily. You from this morning would beg to differ. Immediately she pictured him naked and bit down on her bottom lip. Who was she kidding? Nude Luke was her preferred version of Luke. That was immature. She could blame the wine on luring him to her studio, but she'd gone forward with it, stone sober the next morning. It was clever, he argued, giving her way too much credit. Your turn to share a truth. Why do you hate the camera so much? You noticed that, huh? She reached for her wine. There was this quiet cry of despair coming from your throat while we were live. It was eerie. She tore a corner off her roll and launched at him. It bounced off his nose as the waiter arrived to take their orders. They barely made it through without laughing. No trauma to speak of, she answered after the waiter left. I prefer being behind the scenes. Behind the canvas, you mean? You're talented, Cammie. Thank you. I love to draw and paint and teach others how. I'm not quite ready to share my creations with the world, but a small class is okay. His lips twisted like he had a secret. What? Nothing. I think you're incredible. You're just trying to earn a kiss later. You got me. He leaned in and squinted one eye. Is it working? It was obvious that Cammie was an absolute knockout. But Luke was starting to find the rest of her shyness about her work, her borderline inability to take a compliment equally arousing, especially in the region of his uncomfortably tight pants. He wouldn't mind showing her how beautiful she was, giving her the kind of attention she deserved. It wasn't hard to imagine her beneath him moaning his name as he drove deep, but he was getting ahead of himself. Way ahead. To earn that sort of trust from this woman, he was going to have to work hard to make her understand he wasn't looking to lure her into bed for one night only. One night wouldn't be enough. He wanted to keep her there for as long as she'd let him. Not because the sex would be good, though. God, he'd bet it'd be explosive, but because he wanted to learn more about why she loved art, why she loved teaching. She had layers he hadn't taken the time to peel back when he'd met her that first time. He'd been younger, overeager. What an oversight. It seemed they'd both made assumptions based on each other's exteriors. He was a muscle-bound idiot to her yesterday morning. He wondered if she saw him differently now. You shouldn't be shy about sharing your gifts with the world, he told her, meaning it. I'd love to have a Cammie Sauza original in my loft. I don't have any art on the walls yet. That's criminal. She gasped for effect. I don't know where to put it. I don't have an artist's eye, but you do. I do. She also knew what he was getting at, and the twinkle in her eyes was daring him to say it. How can I invite you back to my place without sounding like a total lecherous bastard? On a first date? She sighed. I'm afraid it's impossible. Technically, our second date. Third, if you count the modeling session. She wiggled in her seat as she chewed on her lip. But she hadn't shot him down, and that alone made him feel triumphant. He wasn't ready to let her go yet. Why'd you relocate from Seattle? Smooth subject change, he'd give her that. I wanted to expand Genius Fit to the Midwest. Chicago was a great place to start. I love this city. Her entire being warmed. It's not pretentious yet you still feel as if you're part of the action. And it's nice to start over. Learn how to become someone new. He could relate. Being here had allowed him to become someone new too. He raised his wine glass and gestured for her to do the same. When she did, he said, "To new beginnings." Then he added, "And first kisses." Dinner was incredible. Luke was incredible. Cammie was feeling light loose, and with his fingers intertwined with hers, as they walked to the car, completely turned on. She didn't remember a time when hand-holding had felt this intimate or had led to anticipation of what was to come. He opened the car door for her, him standing 1 foot on the street and her still on the curb. It brought her lips temptingly close to his, and when his gaze flicked to her mouth, she felt it like a touch. What say you? Cammie Sauza, can I show you my place? Twinkle lights wrapped around the lampposts bathed Luke in a golden light, but beneath that princely veneer, she heard the question he was actually asking. Can I take you to bed tonight? How bad of a person would she be if she gave in to this startling amount of attraction, to the longing and yearning to bury her loneliness, seek out the ultimate pleasure in his fantastic body and tempting mouth? Not bad at all, the devil on her shoulder answered in a smoky Jessica Rabbit voice. I'd love that. She leaned in the faintest bit, and he kissed her. It was a soft press of his lips on hers, but it sent droves of static electricity down her body, leaving her hot and chilled at the same time. It was over as fast as it started. The promise for more if she wanted, but no more than she could handle if she didn't. She wanted him, regardless of how long they'd known each other, or that they'd started off on a very awkward foot. She admired her date's strong profile, full yet masculine bottom lip, the sophisticated way his dark hair was styled against his head. In a suit, Luke was truly devastating. As if his Instagram photos of his naked chest weren't enough to render a woman boneless that tie. Yowza. I'm serious about the artwork, Cam, he told her as he drove down Lakeshore Drive. Here the buildings rose into the sky, luxurious and enviable, facing Lake Michigan. This one's mine. He parked in a numbered spot in the garage and led her inside. The doorman greeted him with a "Good evening, Mr. Douglas." In the elevator ride up to his loft, Luke joked, "Not bad for a gym rat, right?" When he opened the door to his space, tremors of excitement danced in her bloodstream. She didn't know if she was more excited to see Luke in his element or become a part of it. He flipped on the lights, revealing the downstairs and open loft above. Like its owner, his place was a feast for the eyes. Bold and unexpected, complex and rich, like the voice murmuring into her ear, asking nightcap. She was impressed. Luke stifled a smile as he watched Cammie take in his loft, admittedly impressive without him in it. It had been his first real splurge when Genius Fit made him his first million. The trick to increasing profits had been creating sports drink sportswear and other items with their recognizable yellow and black label. Cam pointed out his bike hanging from a hook on the painted concrete wall. Nice helmet. Coming soon to a Genius Fit center near you. He'd approved the design 6 months ago. The helmet featured a bright yellow brain, the words, "Genius Fit," painted in large black letters on the back. She sipped her red wine, and he followed her through the downstairs. It wasn't hard to see it through her eyes, given he was still getting used to this being home. The apartment had cost him a cool $1.5 million, and he'd paid cash. The concrete look of the floors was actually a high-end resin and covered the downstairs. His fox red couch reclaimed wood crate tables and black iron floor lamps he'd chosen from various furniture stores in the area. The only items he'd brought with him from Seattle were the stylish black metal pegboard with shelves currently holding his weights. Located behind it was a weight bench, which was where Cammie stood. "The owner of Genius Fit doesn't work out in one?" She gave him the side eye. "Do you paint in your studio?" "All the time. My apartment is too tiny for my supplies." She tilted her head to the upstairs where his bed was, where he'd like her to be. 10 of my apartments would fit in here. He took in her delicate frame, the shapely calves that led down to black high heels. She'd worn her hair down tonight, and those waves were begging for his fingers. He wanted nothing more than to strip her from that dress and see those loose red waves decorate her warm, fair skin. His cock grew heavy at the thought. "Can I see the upstairs?" "Of course." He coughed to clear his throat and placed a hand on her lower back. Anything to keep her from noticing his physical reaction to her. She'd come here for he didn't know what reason, but it wasn't to be mauled within 10 minutes of crossing the threshold. "You do need some artwork in here," she commented, blithe. "Like what?" He had a feeling she had something in mind. "Oh, I don't know." At the top of the stairs, she rested her wine glass on his dresser and walked to the railing overlooking the downstairs. He did the same, standing close enough that his suit jacket brushed her arm. He'd just decided to carefully pick his moment when she turned to him and said, "Kiss me." This kiss was nothing like the kiss outside of Luke's car. It was explosive, unrestrained. Their teeth knocked together in their exuberance as lust poured through her like fire. She'd had enough of polite conversation. She was through with teasing and flirting. What she needed was basil and carnal and something else. It was Luke. She needed him to free her from her chains of boredom and unintentional celibacy. He was sexy and funny and had treated her like a lady. He was her catnip. Tonight might be the only night she could have him. He wasn't the settling down type, she could tell. And now, on the cusp of becoming even more well-known with his choice of any of the legion of women who worshipped him online. Why would he choose a starving artist? In her experience, dips into the dating pool were hit or miss, but Luke was a sure thing. She knew him, knew his sister anyway, so she knew he wasn't a psycho. She'd sleep with him, paint for him, and maybe they'd end up casual acquaintances after that. She found she liked thinking of him that way, as his for the night. He'd be the one who got away, a story to bring up whenever she had girls' night with Maria, a fantasy to keep her warm during cold Chicago winter nights. But tonight, she wouldn't go to bed cold. His tongue sought hers and stroked hot and ready. He sifted her hair between his fingers, his moan reverberating off her breasts resting against his chest. "So soft," he muttered, before turning her inside out again with another of those potent kisses. His hands at the back of her dress, he ran his thumb along her zipper. Short of snicking the tab down and opening her dress, he pulled his lips from hers, his eyes darkening to deep moss. "Cammie." It was only her name, but she heard the question. This was him asking for permission. The zipper was the boundary line of sorts, and once more she considered. Was she ready? Hell. Yes. As soon as the whisper of approval left her lips, he opened the back of her dress. Cool air sent goosebumps down her arms and legs. He kissed her bare shoulder, an open-mouthed, slow-paced kiss that didn't match their earlier frantic energy. A shiver that had nothing to do with being chilled slipped down her back when he let the bright green dress pool to the floor. He explored her throat and collarbone down to her breasts, still encased in her lace bra, stopping only to mutter, "God, you taste good." When he pulled the cup aside and slicked her nipple with his tongue, she nearly came on contact. He raised his dark head. "If you like that, you're going to love what I do next." Luke backed Cammie to his bed, a sizable king first, admiring how mouth-watering she was in black lace. He tipped his chin toward the mattress. "Lie down." She bit her bottom lip, her teeth doing a slow scrape over the plump flesh, and blood promptly rushed to his dick. He refused to hurry. It had been a miracle of sorts that he'd run into her in the city, another miracle that she'd messaged him. Yet another miracle that she'd agreed to dinner with him, and now it was like he'd won the Powerball after buying only one ticket. Cammie Sauza. On his bed, her skin flushed pink, her breasts heaving behind fabric he wanted to chew to pieces. Anything to remove the barrier to her giving sweet-scented flesh. He unknotted his tie, and she sat up, helping him with his shirt buttons. "You're in a hurry." Wonder why. So not only did she want him, but she was having as much fun as he was. Bonus. "Nothing you haven't seen before." She reached for his member standing between his legs, as erect as the Willis Tower. "Not like this." When her eyes widened hungrily, he had to remind himself that coming first was not an option. He wanted Cammie to be overcome, lost in passion for him. He wanted to claim her so thoroughly that she'd never forget tonight. God knew he wouldn't. He divested her of her bra, spending a few more precious moments memorizing the size and feel of her hard nipples against his tongue, and then kissed his way down to her belly. She muttered something about needing a gym while he was there, and he bit her lightly in reprimand. "You're perfect." He paired the compliment with rolling her black lace thong over her thighs, then dropping his knees to the floor. She'd opened herself to him figuratively and willingly, and he'd make sure she wouldn't regret it. Beautiful came his praise, but he hardly knew what he was saying before lowering his mouth to taste the heart of her. She met him with an upward thrust, her hands knotting his hair as she guided him to the right spot. He tested pressure light hard, and then speed fast, slow, and when he elicited a low moan of approval from her, he knew he'd struck gold. Reaching up her writhing form, he gently tugged her nipples with his fingers, timing those tugs with his tongue's lashes. She kept rhythm her oohs and ahs, rendering him as hard as rebar, his attention trying to dive south. If Luke was anything, he was disciplined, especially with his body. Rather than give in to his body's demands, he lifted her hips and picked up the pace, pleased when Cammie arched her back and cried out in ecstasy. Cammie descended slowly from the gauzy beyond. Her mind was filmy, blurry. The buzz in her body was a low hum of bliss beyond comparison. She hadn't had an orgasm like that in. Had she ever had an orgasm like that? "I like that laugh," Luke praised, and only then did she realize she'd giggled. As intensely as she felt everything around this man, how did he also render her buoyant and relaxed? Was there some alternate universe where years ago she'd taken him home the night of Sabrina's party? Had they been together ever since, and the sex was as exciting and new as that first time? She had to wonder. She'd never felt this comfortable, not around anyone. and yet she responded body and soul to him. He'd peeled her out of her incessant worrying as easily as her cocktail dress. As long as you're not laughing at me. He lowered his hot body both in temperature and in metaphor over hers, and she pushed her breasts against his chest. Not laughing. Are you ready for another orgasm? Ms. Sauza. He touched his lips with hers, slick from her own arousal, before deepening into a kiss that nearly sent her off to Never Never Land. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. He left the haven of her thighs only briefly and returned wearing a condom. Balancing on his forearms, he watched her carefully as he tipped his hips. 1 inch, 2, 3. She lost count as he pushed his way into her body slowly. She recalled the look of him at full mast, his penis proud and saluting her. She'd wanted to taste it, but he beat her to the punch. Maybe next time. She didn't entertain that thought, having already bargained with herself that once would have to be enough. Fantasies weren't for keeps. Maybe for alternate her and alternate Luke in that other universe, but not here in Chicago on planet Earth. Here, they were meant for one night, one amazing, mind-blowing night. She squeezed her legs around his and then wrapped her arms around his shoulders. Anything to bring herself closer to him. Each of his firm thrusts found its home deep within her and set off an array of needy, desperate sounds from her throat. Those sounds turned to pleas of there. And oh, how Luke worked to meet her demands. When she clutched and came this time, it was with an abandon she'd never felt, her voice scratching along her vocal cords as close to a sob as she could come without actually bursting into tears. She could have, though. He was that good. Her inner muscles clamped down again as tiny aftershocks came like sparks. That move brought Luke's release. His handsome face twisting, his teeth bared. Definitely this was the hottest he'd been yet. Luke climbed the stairs, 2 water bottles in hand. At the top of the staircase, he paused and took in the sight of Cammie on his charcoal gray bed sheets, the city skyline visible through the windows overhead. He framed her with his thumbs and his fingers. This is the painting I want. Me on your bed? Yep. The only other option is to keep you here. He climbed onto the bed and kissed one of her nipples, then her lips. Naked. Forever. She laughed, and it was a sound that was both easy and heavy. How'd she do that? Be so at ease and yet so standoffish at the same time? Whenever he'd heard his friends say that women were complicated, he'd agreed with the sentiment. He'd had plenty of women give him mixed signals, plenty more who were completely disingenuous. Hell, the last woman he'd gone out with had snapped his photo at dinner and put it online for some sort of perverse bragging rights. Cammie wasn't like that. She was complicated in the same way he could stare at a Van Gogh painting for hours, each passing moment becoming more aware of the complex layers of colors and the seemingly random but perfectly placed brushstrokes. Cameron Sauza, a still life. She grinned. Your full name is Cameron. Oh no! She clapped her hands over her eyes. We had sex, and you don't know my name. He tugged one hand away and kissed her palm. You never told me Cammie was short for anything. That's not my fault. He reached over her naked body to grab his phone, and had to steal one more nipple kiss. I have something to show you. Pulling up the post he'd shared just 2 days ago, he showed her the screen. When did you take that? After my debut as a nude model. He'd snapped the Chicago cityscape painting when she'd turned her back. He'd posted it on Instagram later with the address of her studio. I thought it'd be good promo. She snatched the phone and scrolled through the copious comments. 20,012 likes. Impressive, right? He'd been saving telling her for this reason. He'd wanted to surprise her and, yes, to impress her. Have you received an influx of calls or emails for your services yet? She yanked the sheet over her gorgeous body and sat up her hair a red tornado. Hot as hell. And nearly as angry. What's wrong? You violated my privacy. That's what's wrong? She tossed his phone at him as if offended by the device. Your fans, those girls hate me. They're jealous. They want to be you. That must be great for your ego, Cammie. But she was already pulling on her dress, yanking on her thong beneath it. They played a brief game of tug-of-war with her bra, and her eyes flashed with ire. Let go. Not until you tell me what's really wrong. It sure as hell isn't that I posted your painting. Already, this was complicated. Already, Cammie wanted another night in Luke's bed. And when he'd said he wanted a painting of her, he'd been sincere, and that had shot straight into her heart. She was surprised that he'd posted her painting on his account. She was alarmed that it had so many likes, and she was borderline embarrassed at some of the women who'd commented that they wished they were her. It was surreal, but Luke was right. That wasn't the essence of her panicked get-dressed and runaway tactic. Hand still wrapped around her bra strap, she made one last feeble attempt to pull it out of Luke's grip. He let go, but followed her backward step, with a forward one of his own. He didn't speak, simply waited for her to tell him what was wrong. What was wrong? But she knew. The question was she brave enough? Voice it. Am I conquest? Luke's lips pulled into an almost sad smile as his eyelids sank shut. When he reopened them, he shook his head. No, Cam, you're not a conquest. With a sigh, he walked behind her and gently tugged the zipper on her dress closed. I was trying to help. If you can't use fame to help the ones what good is fame if you can't help people? He quickly corrected. She spun on him. I don't need help. He shrugged his hands out in a helpless gesture. I like you, Cammie. More than I thought I would. If that came through then. He fed his hands into his hair. Damn it, how did I blow this twice? He paced away from her. What are you talking about? That night at my sister's party. He sat on the bed, his normally cocksure expression muted. You thought I was a brainless jock. Arguably, you were right. You weren't a conquest tonight, and you weren't one then either. It sounds stupid to say, but I wanted to, His cheeks went ruddy with color. What? Tell me. Barefoot bra in hand, she paced over to where he sat. I wanted to earn you. For a night, he stood to his full height, his suddenly thunderous expression alarming. You wanted the same from me. Admit it. Social media playboy, genius fit gazillionaire. You wanted to be wooed. You wanted the fantasy. You weren't going to stay here any longer than one night anyway. Chin up, she refused to show weakness. Refused to be towed in by Luke, who apparently wanted her to apologize for not going home with him years ago. Well, screw that. She wasn't here to massage his ego. Screw you, Douglas. His lip curled. Too late. She snatched her shoes and marched downstairs. Diet. Idiot. Idiot, Cammie. Hang on. Racing downstairs in his boxer briefs, Luke was aware he looked like as big of an idiot as he actually was, but he was fighting for his life here. I'm sorry. Her hand was on the doorknob, her shoes linked between the fingers of one hand. At least put your shoes on. Those sidewalks are sketchy. She turned slowly, her eyes narrowed, and her lips pursed. You're not going to offer to drive me home. Am I going to voluntarily take you farther away from me? No way. I had my heart set on the you in my bedsheets thing. Don't joke. His typical online glibness or reply of an emoji wasn't going to save him this time. Okay. He took a deep breath. I told Sabrina I bumped into you. Know what she said? One word. Kismet. Know what kismet it means. Fate. Destiny. God's will. He took a step toward her. Providence. Written in the stars. Another step. Predestination. He finished walking to her pleased when she didn't flee. Bullshit that stuff, right? Her nod wasn't very convincing. That's what I thought too. Now I'm not so sure. Was I destined to bear the family jewels for your class? I doubt it. That was my own stupidity coming back to bite me in the ass. Although karma is also a synonym for kismet, brainiac, she mumbled, her tone teasing enough to give him hope. For all my smarts, I'm a moron around pretty girls. And around the most beautiful woman in the world who could match me, blow for blow. He huffed out a breath. Phew, forget it. You win every time. He watched her, the invisible clock in his head, ticking away the seconds he had to salvage what he'd almost kamikazed again. Finally, she spoke, but he kept holding his breath. Did you mean it? When you said you wanted to earn me? He winced. Was that cheesy? Completely. Those big shoulders of his sagged. Is it me? Am I incapable of people taking me seriously? No matter what I say, no matter how sincere everyone thinks I'm speaking in sound bites or in 180 tweetable characters, Cammie was beginning to understand him better. The pressure of being a public figure. The weight that came with it too light for a man with as much heart as Luke. Luke who meant what he said when he said it. Luke who was sincere and honest and wore his heart on his sleeve. The packaging was too perfect to be believed, but the truth was she had underestimated him. Then and now. All because she couldn't believe he could ever find her as lustworthy as she found him. She bridged the gap between them, lifting a hand to his staggeringly handsome face. It's not you. Dee, don't say, it's not you, it's me. Luke's face was agonized like he'd heard that before. Cammie dragged her hand from his face to his chest. No. That's not what I was going to say. It's not you, full stop. I didn't take you seriously, and that's on me. After my last relationship ended, I was vulnerable, and you have all this confidence. You're sexy funny. You're rich, for God's sake. He laughed, and her chest loosened. She wanted to please him, to make him smile. She wanted him, period. And maybe this was some sort of karma, and maybe it wasn't that silly. I don't want to be so jaded that you become the one who got away. I told myself that tonight was it, but maybe it doesn't have to be. Hope rose between them. She could feel it. I don't want it to be, he said. Luke, I'm Sauza. No. He rested one finger over her lips. We've said enough apologies for the things we've done over the last 2 days. Let's agree to never apologize again. Never. She pushed her bottom lip out. That's too bad. His brow scrunched in confusion. She dropped her shoes with a clunk and placed her other hand on his chest. I was going to apologize by kissing you head to toe. His Adam's apple worked as he swallowed. His eyes arrowed into her. That's fine, but you can stop when you reach the middle. Dropping her head back, she laughed, feeling once again light and loose. You have to tell your followers I'm not your fiancé, though. Agreed. Then he leaned in for a kiss that led to the more they both wanted. 2 years later, spring was finally back after what had felt like the winter of a lifetime. No sun yet, though, so Cammie burrowed deeper into bed, pulling the blankets up to her nose. Outside, a thunderstorm raged the wind, sending rain pinging against the window panes over the bed in a machine gun rhythm. Auntie M, Luke called as he came up the stairs. She'd sent him down for wine, having no inclination of climbing out of bed after they'd had what might have been the best sex ever. Champagne, she asked, as he handed over one flute of bubbling liquid and kept one for himself. You're celebrating. I am, but why? Then she saw it, the diamond solitaire submerged in her glass. Oh, will you? He smiled. After years of not apologizing verbally, her moving in the crazy success of her studio, and the 45th Genius Fit grand opening, she was more in love with him than ever, and him with her. They told each other every day. She grinned. He grinned. Cammie didn't have to say the word yes. Luke already knew her answer.